Okay.
All right. Well, welcome to another episode of TheReuPLive. Really excited about tonight's show. We're going to have a continuation of a discussion that we started last week about relationships. A lot of times on our show, you hear us mention having a relationship with God over just religion, right? So last show, if you didn't catch it, definitely go back. The edited versions are up. We talked a lot in depth about what we mean. Differences are between being in a religious situation with God and what it looks like to be in a relationship with God.
Welcome to the talk show, where we're kicking it and having fun on inspirational radio. We're the talk show, kicking it and having fun. So turn your radio up.
The pros and cons. Shared some personal testimonies to hopefully, paint the picture of what that looks like. So this week, I know we said we were going to continue that conversation, and then we're going to transition over to something that we feel is just as important, which is, when you're building that relationship with God, God actually instructs us to have a good relationship with our neighbor, with our brothers and our sisters. So we want to talk a little bit about why we think that's important, what that really looks like, what did God really say about that, and how effective that can really be as living kingdom, growing the kingdom, introducing more to who God really is. So I'm super excited about that particular topic. I mean, my head has been running all week with just examples and just different things that relate to that. So, and I'm pretty sure Lasagna and Dion have a lot of, insight on relationships. They real, being comedians, y'all good with people. I think y'all good with building relationships, huh? Would y'all say that?
Normally.
Most of the time.
I think I'm a people person. Yeah. Like, I like people. Like, I don't meet strangers. Like, I can go to the grocery store, mall. I don't meet strangers. I'm going to talk to anybody. How you doing, miss? How you doing, sir? You look nice. Or just talking, waving. Yeah, I don't meet strangers. So that's the truth.
Yep. No, I can see that. Dion, he trying to be shy, but we know better. We know better. But we always start to show off with some current event things, and this current event I think is going to lead to that conversation, about relationships. And there's a young basketball player, and I was, trying to catch Lasagna up. Lasagna, you don't watch the NBA that much, do you?
Yeah, he had to catch me up, y'all. He had to catch me up. I said, "What's the young man's name?" I said, "I don't know him."
Well, here's a picture.
I know him now. Yeah, see, this is the first time I've seen him. I know him now.
This is Ja Morant. How old is Ja Morant? Dion, like 23, 24, something like that?
I think
he's
like
pretty
22.
young. Yeah, he's pretty young.
Like 22, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's pretty young. I think he's been in the league for like 3 or 4 years. Definitely on the verge of superstar.
Okay.
Really elite basketball player. A lot of young, people look up to him. I'm super familiar with him because my youngest son, Jordan, he's super infatuated with Ja Morant and how he plays. And so, has a lot of people, that's watching him. And so over the last couple of months, though, he's been in the news for some pretty negative things. A couple of months ago, right before the playoffs started, he was on his live Instagram. I think he was at like a club, strip club, something like that. And, he was kind of throwing up some gang signs, throwing up gang, and holding a gun, right? And so the NBA, being the brand that it is, took a stance on it. So they put him on a suspension for like 8 games. I follow basketball. So Memphis Grizzlies, I think they were either number 2 in their division, at the time before he went on this hiatus. And I think they dropped down to number 3 or 4 or whatever. And really was in some jeopardy of, almost not being in a good position for the playoffs. And so it was very, very much a big detriment to his team. More importantly, again, I think from the mentor or the fact that he's a role model to a lot of young men and women, he, really disciplines people. So I know from that point, he said he went to some counseling, he did some different things, but unfortunately, this past weekend, he had another incident where one of his friends, it wasn't his Instagram, but one of his friends was on like a live feed for Instagram and kind of, showed him quickly. And in that quick synopsis, it was a picture of him, with a gun again. So this is that picture. It was like real blurry. But you can see, the gun in his hand, and, here we are with that situation. So the NBA is expected to take an even more drastic stance, with this. Some people are saying, any upwards to like maybe half a season, 40 games, 30, 40 games that he might end up missing. Some, I've heard people say maybe a whole year. Indefinites, don't really know what stance they're going to take on it. But, my feeling with this, and I see a lot of young men, and so I have 2 points that I want to point out tonight. So I'll start off with this one. And the responsibility and accountability that I think Ja Morant has, to himself and to, his situation. I think when people get on that level, when you get successful, you got to be mindful of the people that you have around you or that you keep around you. Again, he is a business. He's a brand, and he's a part of a business and a brand. Shoe deals. You know what I mean? He has people that are threatening to, in his relationship with shoe deals and commercials and things like that because of this instance. And I can't help but feel that, a lot of young people, this is an example of people who get into this situation, and, maybe you have friends that are in a certain lifestyle or, doing, certain things, and you feel like you have to either be in that lifestyle or present that lifestyle. I remember, back in the day when people talking about keeping it real or, staying true to who and where you came from. I'm really from the proponent that, like, when God is taking you to new places, sometimes people can't go with you. So that's my first, or I think my initial thought for Ja. Like, if he's listening to this, like I think he really needs to pay attention to his circle, and really start focusing on his future and can all these people go with you, to your future. So that's one initial thought that I have with it. But you just hearing this story for the first time, Sonia, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking about?
I think that young, sometimes you don't know how big you are. I think sometimes you run around in the street, you got your friends, you're doing whatever, and you think you are who you were, and you don't even know that you're famous. When I say that, you're getting a bigger check, you playing on a team, but from the inside, I'm still the same dude. I'm still the same. Well, man, I'm cool like that. Sometimes you don't know. Everything transition when you got that position, but sometimes it's hard for your personality to catch up. I mean, he's 20-some years old. He's a young man. So, of course, he's not trying to drop all his friends. He just now getting to the club age. He just now getting to the party scene. So he like, yeah, dude, me and you. But the problem is, on a dime, his life changed. When he signed that contract, he got in there. I don't even know if his brain has shifted to even know, oh my God, this is a whole nother life. Like who I was then before I got this contract is not who I am now.
Right.
So I would think that he would probably need some mentorship and somebody to tell him, hey, that might be what you want to do, but by sheer talent, by your life is larger than where you came from. And sometimes the people you're hanging out with, they can't still go where you're going because their mind is still back there, but you've been jolted, catapulted into another level of success, whether you wanted it or not. Your talent brought you into a room that your past is trying to get you out of. So I would say he probably would need some mentorship and get somebody in his head that really care about him as a person and let him know how this all works. Because he's 20-some years old. Clearly, he brand new. He's a young man, and there will be a lot of pressure on him to just drop everybody, and he run around with the people that do these sorts of things, and to just cut himself off, that would mean, however he's feeling about it. You know what I mean? Right. Being a young person. And I said, being that young, that's a lot of pressure. Being that young and that famous with that much gifting and talent. But now on the other side, I do have a problem with all these guns we allowing to come into America and all these gun laws. Why they got a problem with him showing the gun if you approve of the gun, but you don't want to see the gun. Now you got to make up your mind. Now you politicians, you don't want them with the guns, but you want them to shoot them up at the school. You want all of these laws. Now you have to make up your mind. You for the guns, you against the gun. Now help me understand. I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out there.
So that leads kind of to the second point that I really wanted to discuss, and I actually have a video that I want to show to kind of lead into that. This was on TikTok, and I think it did a really good job of explaining this point of view. So I'm going to play this, and then let's circle back to that. Because I do think there is definitely a double standard when it comes to this. Let me first say that, again, I think Ja definitely needs, some accountability with this, but I think that accountability needs to be across the board to everyone who is pushing this narrative or who has a problem with that narrative. And it should not just be him because he's a person of color or, whatever his situation is. Let me play this real quick. It's about 2 minutes. And then let's talk about that.
As an NBA fan and a Memphis Grizzlies fan, I'm disappointed in the behavior of Ja Morant. But even more so, I continue to be disappointed in the treatment of young black men in the United States of America when it comes to the double standard of how they are treated around guns versus their white counterparts. Consider all of these pictures showing white GOP lawmakers brandishing weapons. They do so in a very cavalier way, and they are not punished, but rather they are rewarded by their constituents for defending their Second Amendment rights. Where is the NRA in supporting Ja Morant's Second Amendment rights? If you look back at history, Malcolm X was often dismissed as a violent radical for saying much of the same things that white people say today in quote unquote defending their Second Amendment rights. I've attended churches where people openly carry firearms in predominantly white spaces, and many times this is considered something that gives people a sense of security. But why is there a double standard when it comes to young black men holding weapons in our society? I think we know the answer, right? It is due to the systemic racism that continues to be perpetuated in the United States of America around the idea of fearing black men. And until we deal with these issues, we're going to continue to see this double standard perpetuated in the United States of America. Remember, we cannot change what we refuse to acknowledge. And this is but another example of how racism continues to perpetuate itself in America.
Wanted to share that because, like you alluded to, Lasagna, that was definitely, one of the thoughts, that I had about this as well. As a Black man, I understand from one standpoint our accountability as Black men to change the narrative that we have. Again, people expect us to be, in the streets, in gangs, throwing up, being dangerous and all of that. Like that stigmatism is something that that people want to place on us. So I have a problem when we place that stigmatism on ourselves, or when we, act in the way that people kind of expect us to act. But again, to this man's point, and to your point earlier, it's definitely a double standard when it comes to people of a white race, brandishing guns, in a way that, again, kind of carelessly, like no problem. No one has an assumption about their motives or what, they're doing it for. It's automatically assumed that it's because of security and because of, protection and things like that. And so I think that's the other side of the coin that needs to be addressed. Like, we can why do we think we can have it both ways in this situation? So, Dion, I know you were working on your feed there, but I know you're familiar with the Ja situation. So definitely curious to hear your thoughts about, both of those standpoints. And, if you have another take on that.
What I would be concerned about is somebody helping him maximize his moment now, because he may not have a chance to grow into it.
Yes.
Because it looks like a lot of pressure is coming down on him. And sometimes you do stuff in real time that you get a chance to grow 10 years from now. But it looks like the pressure is so heavy, he may not have that growing opportunity.
Welcome to the talk show, where we're kicking it and